Welcome to Issues and Insiders, a new video series from Carolina Journal focused on the top issues in our state and the interesting people behind them. Today we had the opportunity to sit down with Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. Elected in 2020, Robinson is the state's first black lieutenant governor. He's also a conservative Republican who has won a groundswell of support across the state for his no-nonsense approach. Our discussion with Mr. Robinson today focused on his new book, We Are the Majority. In addition to talking through his book, we also discussed his past life in North Carolina and what his future in politics in the Tar Heel State might hold. Lieutenant Governor, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So in the book, you recount some experiences in your past that were pretty dark. What carried you through those hard times?
I would have to say it's family. You know, the tough times that we went through, I don't believe we would have been able to survive, any of us, if we hadn't had each other. So family being together there to support each other through those tough times, that's what got us through.
Kind of related to that, you describe in one section of the book how your mom could have relied on welfare, but she chose not to. What kind of impact did that decision have on you and you think for your family overall?
Oh gosh, that's a pivotal moment in my life. It was a pivotal moment, of course, in her life, but it was definitely a pivotal moment in my life. My mom told that story till the day she died, literally, about how a well-meaning friend told her that, you know, your husband's gone, you have 5 kids, you could just rely on what we call the welfare to take care of you for the rest of your life. But she wasn't satisfied with that. She wasn't going to allow that to be the standard she set for herself or for her household or her children. And to see my mom get up every day and literally walk to work before she was able to buy a car, and not just walk to work, but go to work and work hard and do a very good job. It definitely made a huge impact in my life. That was the turning point for our family. Our family took a huge upward swing when my mom went to work. So it definitely was a game changer.
Now, I know in your own experience with work, you have a lot of experience in the background, kind of a working class background with managing a restaurant and in furniture manufacturing and that sort of thing. What did all of those experiences teach you? What lessons?
Oh gosh, I just, you know what's odd about what I'm doing now is I find that at every turn I'm drawing from the experiences that I had in the places that I've worked. You know, furniture manufacturing taught me the value of working with your hands, of being able to be a craftsman, of being able to, at the end of the day, to look back and say, I produced this. Funny thing that I do a lot of times, I'll go around to different places that I visit now, and I'll see furniture that we produced in one of our plants. And now people think I'm crazy, but I'll flip it upside down to see if maybe my name is not on it. But it's a very good feeling. And then, you know, managing a restaurant really taught me how to deal with people and deal with tough situations. You know, who to decide to bring into leadership, you know, when you have to sit people down and tell them their services are no longer needed. And then when my wife and I owned the daycare, that taught me what it meant to be the person where the buck stops. You know, when we owned that daycare center, there was no one to rely on. We were the people who were signing those checks at the bottom. We were the responsible party for everything that happened in that place. So it taught me a great deal about being a small business owner. So those experiences have served me well, and they keep me grounded because they remind me of why I'm here. I'm not here to serve myself. I'm here to serve the people of North Carolina who shared the experiences that I've had.
So your book opens up describing your childhood in a rat-infested home in Greensboro, and fast forward to today, you're a lieutenant governor. What's that story been like? How do you feel about that story from where you started to where you are now? It's
amazing, but the more I travel and the more people I speak to, I see it's not out of the ordinary. I talk to so many people. You know, you meet a guy and somebody will introduce you to him, and before they introduce you to him, they'll say, hey, this guy's a billionaire now, so you know. And then you meet them and you talk to them and they're just down to earth, and then they tell you their story and they tell you how they started from nothing. They tell you about how they lived in a shack with holes in the roof or in the floor or both. They tell you about how they used to walk around all summertime without shoes because their family couldn't afford them. And you see that your story is not too different from many of the people, not just in this state, but in this nation. And it reinforces that belief that this is still the greatest nation on earth and that these opportunities that we have don't exist anywhere else.
So what role does faith play in your life, and how important is that to you?
Oh gosh, it's everything. It's everything. I credit faith with everything. All of our success up to this point, I credit faith. Credit to my faith. You know, there was a time in my life when I was very shy about my faith. I think a lot of that was because I wasn't living out the tenets of my faith. I was falling woefully short of being who God wanted me to be. But the more I find myself surrendering to His will, the more successful I find myself to be. And, you know, sometimes when I sit down and I think about some of the things I did in my past, you know, when I fell short, sometimes I feel a little convicted, but He always taps me on the shoulder and He says, that's water under the bridge. He said, I'm moving you forward, not backward. So look forward, don't think back, because I'm not. And so faith is my great encourager.
So your story obviously has quite a few, your book actually has quite a few stories about your life. Mm-hmm. Was there one experience from your life that you would pull out and say that was a really pivotal moment? I think you mentioned your mom.
Gotta be.
With welfare.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
That was the pivotal moment of my childhood. It turned our family around, taught me a great lesson. But I think it would have to be the city council speech. That was I guess what they call a watershed moment for me. That was a moment where, you know, I stood at, what do they call it, the Rubicon, and had to decide whether or not I was going to cross. And when it came right down to it, what I really thought about, I thought about the people who had stood up and sacrificed for me to get me where I am. And I said, if I don't stand up and do something now, I never will. And so definitely, that's probably the pivotal moment for my adult life.
So going into that moment, when you made that speech in 2018, what did you think at the time would be the outcome? You know,
when I described this in the book, I gave that speech completely off the cuff. I was very frustrated when I gave it, and when I finished and left that building, I could not remember a single word I had uttered, and I was struggling to remember what I said, and I thought, those folks must think I'm crazy. And it wasn't. I went home. My wife asked me if I spoke, and I said yes, and she said, what did you say? And I said, I don't remember. I don't remember. It wasn't until the next day a friend of mine sent me a message. The very first message I received, feedback I received, a fellow named Clifton sent me a message, said, hey, that was a great speech. And I went and looked, and it was online, and I saw it was getting a few views. And I knew how social media worked, and I figured, well, people will see this, and they'll either call me crazy, or they'll say, hey, great job, and it'll, you know, get a few views, and they'll be gone. It just never did. It just continued to grow and grow and grow. And I'm still amazed by the growth of it. But yeah, it's definitely was not expecting that outcome, the outcome that we've seen come out of it.
So tell me the story of how you decided to run for lieutenant governor and what all that looked like.
Well, you know, again, after that city council speech, and that video started getting hundreds of millions of views, and I kept getting approached by people who were saying, you know, hey, you know, if you monetize this, you can make a nickel every time somebody dials a 1-800 number, blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking about it, and I said, you know, yeah, it'd be nice to be a millionaire from this video. It'd be nice. But then I really had to think about it, and I said, you know, I really have to stick with the reasons that this happened. And I really believe the reason this happened is because this is something that God led me into. I believe He put those words in my mouth. I believe He gave me my ability to be able to deliver the way I deliver. And I said, that is not a commodity that needs to be sold. And that speech is not something that needs to be sold. It's something that needs to be shared for the purposes of inspiring people. And so we decided not to go that route. And we decided instead to say, if we're really going to make an impact, we need to step into the arena where we feel like we can make an impact for the people. And so we decided to run for office. It's actually my wife's idea to run for lieutenant governor. I looked at mayor and city council and a number of other positions. But my wife was the one who originally bought the idea of running for lieutenant governor, and we did it, and I guess the rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah. So what's surprised you the most about being lieutenant governor?
I don't think there's anything that's really surprised me. I guess I'm still a little surprised and dismayed at the way politics work. I see a lot of things in politics that I don't like. I certainly understand it, but that's the same in every profession I've ever been in. You know, there were things about the furniture industry I didn't like. There were things about restaurant management that I didn't like, about owning a small business that I didn't like. But those are the things that you have to deal with. It's just the so-called the nature of the beast. But surprises, you know, I really can't say there are any surprises that I've had other than the fact of how deep politics affect every move you make in this position. I mean, everything is affected by politics on both sides, up and down and all around.
So when you talk with North Carolinians right now, what are some of the things you're hearing?
Oh gosh, you know, the things at the federal level. Everybody's concerned about the economy. The economy is always number one. People are concerned about gas prices, inflation. They're concerned about our border being wide open. They're concerned about some of the things that we kind of see on the periphery, things like ESG scores and the moves that are being made to hire all these IRS agents. But those number one things continue to be the economy and education. Those two things are really, I mean, they're front and center right now. When we saw in the election in Virginia, those were the top two issues. The economic issue is always there. But in Virginia, that issue with education was one of the drivers, I believe, for the change that we saw in Virginia. And I believe it's going to be a big driver this time as well. You know, the COVID debacle kind of exposed a lot of things. And one of the things it did expose, it pulled a lot of parents into the school system so they could get a look. And a lot of them didn't like what they see, so they're screaming for change. So that's mostly what we're hearing. The same things that are going on television, those are the same things. The same things going on national level. Same things that are going on in North Carolina.
So what's the main message you hope readers would take from your book?
The main message I think I'd like for people to take from the book are, number one, is that family is paramount to everything. Family is, you cannot replace family. You just can't. I mean, you know, that's the one thing that we need more than anything in this country, and really in the world, families to stay together and support one another. The second thing would be to stand up and encourage each other to be better, you know, give encouragement to one another, challenge one another to do better, to be better, to think for themselves. One of the pivotal moments in my life was when my best friend challenged me to do that, and it really set me on the path of being politically awakened. And then probably the last thing would probably be to stand up and speak up. And don't be afraid to stand up and speak up for your rights, because that's how the founders formed this nation. This nation was formed on the premise that the ordinary man or woman can stand up and for their rights. And more of us need to do that. And I would hope that the example that we had by giving a 4-minute speech and leading to what it's led to will inspire other people to do the same.
Well, Lieutenant Governor, thank you for joining us today.
Yes, sir. Thank you.